Hello again, this is Mario the Artisan Rogue. I decided I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot and try and draw something tonight just to get my head in the right frame of mind. Chances are this may turn out to be completely terrible. I actually have no idea what I'm going to draw tonight. I had some different thoughts. You know, I have these randomizer dice that I was going to use and that sort of thing, but didn't have all the cameras set up that I really wanted to do. So I'm just going to kind of keep it simple tonight and talk about some other things that are going on. So we'll kind of consider this like a little bit of a, you know, vlogging and drawing sort of circumstance. So what I've got set up here is just a Photoshop document, and I'll show you the parameters of it here. It's just basically it's a 12 by 12 inch at 600. If we go here to inches, you'll see what I'm talking about. I either keep it on pixels or inches, that sort of thing. For those of you who are really good at Photoshop and that sort of thing, I'm sorry if this comes off sounding remedial. I don't mean it to. So I don't know. Like, so now I've started with I think I'm going to go in here and lighten this paper just a little bit for my background and see what that looks like. Yeah, I don't know if I like that or not. That's not terrible. That isn't terrible. Alright. Go up here, erase that out. We'll save this. We'll start from here. So, my default normally whenever I'm drawing stuff is skulls and that sort of thing, or dragon-like creatures. Ever since I was a kid, I always liked stuff like that. So maybe that's what we're going to do today. Maybe we'll go ahead and start off with some light sketching of something. I don't know. You know, sometimes for therapeutic reasons, I'll go ahead and do a drawing and it'll be anything that comes to mind at that point in time. But when I'm doing conventions, I almost always end up finding myself doing some sort of thing that has to do with the undead or something like that. I've always drawn spooky things. So, you know, and I'll show you, I'm going to show you this. This is just kind of messing around and warming up. Whenever I start off, let me get the right color here. I like to, this is how I almost always start off any drawing I'm doing of a skull. And this is just from my head. Like, I'll start with an eye, sort of shaped like this. And then come over here. And it's funny because I remember I took a forensics class, and I remember looking at the different ways that a skull could look. And I always kind of found the human skull to be a little bit boring. So I wanted to put in extra little details and things that don't really exist on skulls. I did notice my Cintiq was acting up a little bit. I think it may be a memory issue with my computer. It's definitely due for a checkup. My computer's name is Digital Absinthe. I've yet to add that onto the end title cards of my videos, but it is an excellent workhorse of a machine that has pushed through quite a few videos and other digital bits of artwork and stuff like this. And my buddy Matt built this beautiful machine for me at B Squared, his company. And he's a hell of a guy. He makes a hell of a good computer. It's got a Ryzen 7 in it and quite a few hard drives. I've got terabytes and terabytes of storage in there that I use to store all my video files and photos and things like that. I like having backups. I like having all that sort of stuff. So because I've had some hard drive crashes in the past, and he's, you know, saved me on a couple of those in the past and helped me retrieve. Like after I went and sent my my last drive to a Clean 100 room, which is, I believe that's what they call them, where they basically will try and extrapolate whatever files they still can get from your drive, and I got this I got like a download link from a server, and it was all the files that they were able to get off that. When that drive went, it took all kind. I lost artwork, photos, videos. It was just heartbreaking. The good thing was I managed to retrieve, or they managed to retrieve, and I got back probably a good I'd say about 70% of them, and I've still been going through a lot of it and seeing, you know, what was missing and what wasn't. So in what I'm drawing right now, this is I don't know why I would always draw this way, but like I would always end up drawing like a skull that wasn't completely the right thing. 'Cause, you know, you look at the human skull, and you know, if you draw the human skull and you have an oval here, the eye line is normally down here, you know, center toward the head, the nose, mouth here, ears go here, that sort of thing, and then, you know, you kind of round out all this stuff, and like the head isn't a complete oval, but the point is that you end up getting a more centralized look to the eyes, you know, so where you're going to put them in here, and then the eyebrows and that sort of thing, and kind of where the nose is. When I draw these very, very stylized skulls, I think I was really inspired by, and some of you may remember what I'm talking about here. There used to be Zorlak. I think that was the artist's name. It's been a couple of years since I've really looked up his stuff, but he used to do like all the Metallica stuff. Like he famously did one where it was a skull that had like a bone running through it, and he always had like one eyeball in it or something like that. So, you know, and that was even something I adopted, where, you know, I might go back in, like if I really wanted this to kind of be Zorlak-y. I'm going to embarrass myself because I don't draw like Zorlak. I mean, I always aspire to do that sort of thing, but he would put in like an eyeball like here or something like that, and it was always kind of a weird halfway deadened eye that would go in there, and it would have veins and that sort of thing, and the skull would come up and be kind of cracked down like this and come back this way, and, you know, there was always something, like maybe it was on a, let me get rid of this over here. I've been using this killer wheel called a tour box, and it allows me, like, my Cintiq has these controls, but just like I think you can see on the screen here, where the size of the brush goes in and out, you know, in its diameter, and this is just a small wheel over here. It's got, I'll show you guys later, I'll have a camera set up kind of showing how some of this stuff works, and probably end up including a secondary camera shot down here. And it's kind of interesting because I haven't programmed all the macros on it yet, but it's faster for me than using the keyboard. And the other problem too is the keyboard is actually way down below my desk, which is where I like it for typing, but not for working with this stuff. So at any rate, so if we were going to do kind of a Zorlak thing, you know, there would always be like a kind of a crack on there or something like that, or I don't know. I seem to remember there was a lot of different odd things that would happen with that sort of stuff. So I had drawn skulls like this since I was, not even joking, I think my parents somewhere have one of the very first skulls I ever drew, and it was in 2nd grade. I don't know why. It wasn't because I was trying to be creepy. It was because, honestly, it was because of Elvira. And that sounds weird, but when I was a little kid, and I think I've told this story in some other videos before. When I was a kid, I really loved horror movies and things like that, and monster movies and stuff. I mean, and looking at Elvira was also probably pretty cool too. But that came a little bit later when we came back to the States, probably because I started watching monster movies like Godzilla and Rodan and all that sort of stuff. My favorite was actually Gamera, the turtle, the big mutated turtle with the tusks underneath. He is not a Toho monster. He's from another company. I can't remember. Toho, the creators and owners of Godzilla, do have a turtle-like creature that often got beat up by Godzilla. But I was raised on that kind of stuff. So whenever I first started watching Elvira and that sort of thing, and really old Hammer horror films and stuff with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and stuff like that, he was Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars, I really dug a lot of the darker imagery and that sort of thing. And I think because, you know, I grew up in a family where, you know, there was a lot of, see, now here I'm going to make up a lot of this anatomy because I really don't remember. And this is where I let a little bit of looseness come into play here. But we would always hear stories, you know, when I was a kid and stuff like that about, you know, different things and superstitions and ghost stories and stuff. And my family was big into that sort of thing. Not Dan Aykroyd level, but it was, you know, some along that line. And because of that, I ended up really gravitating toward wanting to do artwork like this. So I'm hoping I have the volume set right on the music in the background, because this is supposed to be a streaming channel that allows for a little bit of music to be back there, so you're not just listening to dead air as I talk. The volume's probably a little bit too low. I apologize. Right now it's playing some sort of jazz thing. So I put this on toned paper. So let's go in here and let's try some different brushes here. This is a plugin called Brushbox right here. And Brushbox is amazing. I love this thing. It has a lot of different sized brushes and things like that you can mess with, and I really like it. Came with a set of brushes in there, but what was really cool about it was that I was able to kind of work with some brush types I really liked and utilize some different things in here that, like brushes I created, I've imported, and things like that I've made and created in Photoshop. But the best part about this has been that, like, I have shortcut things that I use, like my grass brush and stuff. But I like that it organizes things. I can assign colors and things. It wasn't that expensive. I think I paid like $10 on a special for it. I have something on my hand. And sorry about that. You don't care that it's on my hand, but I do. So, where was I? We're going to create another layer here. And start to highlight in here, Mr. Skeleton. Let me drag this underneath here. Let's save this. So, at any rate, Brushbox was this really cool add-on because I wanted something that gave me a little bit more control and a little bit more of something that I could, use to organize what I was working on and really have something to go back and, get the effects I wanted consistently, since I've started working so much more in digital these days. And it's really been a really fun add-on to use. I can't recommend it enough. So here's a really weird thing for me. In Photoshop, I pretty much suck at coloring, and that's that sounds really horrible to admit something like that. But I'm being completely honest. I am not great at that. That's something that I've struggled with. I used to love black and white art just for the idea that I could come in and kind of place the coloration I wanted and kind of fake my way through it to a large degree. And the main reason for that was just because, there's always been this thing in the back of my head where I just, if I can just draw with pen and ink or pencil all day, I will. I remember whenever I first started playing D&D and I got a chance to see some old dungeon manuals and things like that, or the player's handbook and the dungeon master's guide and stuff like that. And all of the artwork I was seeing in there was all pen and ink sort of stuff. It wasn't anything really... There were a few parts that were really, really detailed, and the cover art was starting to come along. And when I first saw this stuff, this was right around the time the second edition was out, so you were seeing artists like Larry Elmore, Brom, people like that were doing the cover artwork, and you were starting to see some better artwork coming around in the inside. And because of that, I had really started to become enamored with that stuff, and especially the pen and ink stuff that was in there. And I just figured, well, this is something I want to do and something I really want to give, a shot down the road, as far as like, what other stuff can I pull out of this? How can I turn this into something that I can do for a career? And for a long time, I became obsessed with this one guy. His name was Tim Bradstreet. And for anyone who played like Vampire the Role-Playing, or Vampire the Masquerade, that's what it was. He was like the de facto dude that, like, he did all of the covers, it seemed like, for all of the players' handbooks. He did a lot of the interior imagery and wonderful illustrations. In comic circles, he's known for drawing the Punisher, for a lot of different characters. And he has this high contrast sort of thing that was a huge influence to me in college. And for a few years, even after that, I was still doing it. I really liked it a lot. I had a series, I still get made fun of for this, when I was in college, that was kind of this Ramhorn Girl series. So it was a lot of women that that I knew and got to model for me and stuff like that in college, and it was just turning them into like demonesses or something. They had ram horns on them, and it wasn't anything, more symbolic than, hey, you look nice, put some horns on you, that sort of thing, and then do something with it. And but I sort of I definitely outgrew that. There are times when I really do kind of miss that, and I want to go back to that. And I've got friends that do kind of pin up stuff like that I think is phenomenal, but I don't know. I don't have it really in me to really want to do that stuff anymore. And not because of anything really more than I just, I did it. I wasn't that great at it and wanted to go on and do something else more. So every once in a while, like with this, I normally wouldn't even be showing a video like this. This is actually coming out much nicer than I thought it was going to, because I'm usually pretty insecure about just my warm-up sessions where I'm coming in and doing something like this, because I always feel like, oh God, people are going to look at me like this guy gets paid sometimes to do this stuff. This is insane. Who in their right mind pays this guy to make artwork? And so there's a lot of times whenever something like this is not necessarily a dirty little secret or anything else like that, but it's something that I tend to hide back a little bit more because, I don't know. I think we're all, those of us that are artists, we all have an insecure spot in ourselves. And I think that, at least for me, it was always something where I didn't want to be called out for this sort of thing, for having what I would call bad art days. This is, knock on wood, this is actually coming out pretty nice right now, so I'm pretty happy about that. But most of the time, like, I always freak myself out whenever I'm trying to get started with artwork. I don't know how many of you guys do that, but like sometimes there'll be nights like, well, especially last night, it was bad enough I think I lost a subscriber. I think people were just like, oh Jesus, this guy's going on again about something. Oh great, he's going to talk about Grant Imahara. And for what it's worth, I didn't even put that the video was about Grant Imahara or anything else like that. I just kind of gave my 2 cents about my thinking and my thoughts that night, just to get it out. It was more of a cathartic video, and hey, everyone's got their right to unsubscribe if they want. That's fine. But I do enjoy when people comment and when they reach out to me and things like that. That's great. I love that. So I am very, very happy about that. And of course I'd be, So, and sometimes, like, this is artwork that I never put anywhere. I never really do anything with. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, I just throw this file away. After I'm done, I just delete it. There isn't any other reason to keep it. This isn't anything that I'll end up using for anything more. And one of the things that did start happening during this time, like pulling these random colors out. Like I said, I'm not really good at color theory or knowing how things work or how they're supposed to come together. I'm not great at it, but I get by. I try to emulate a lot of stuff that I remember seeing in like old horror movies or like in lighting, especially. Like one of the things I love doing is, on occasion I get a chance to go out and do directing of videos and stuff, and I really do enjoy that. About once or twice a year I'll get to do that. I've done it for a couple of different things. Mainly right now I'm doing it, the opportunities I get are through Thadapalooza, a really good show that is put on by my buddy Thad, and that's always fun to do that sort of stuff where it's really cool. It's out of my normal milieu. It makes me think about other ways of doing stuff that I wouldn't normally try and do. It's very different than this sort of setup where it's a static camera and I've got OBS running and I've got this up on the screen here in front of me, and this seems to be working out pretty good. Oh, speaking of it, I may be getting it's in the mail. I'm getting another microphone set up, so this will probably be going away, and I'll have one that's going to be hanging over my head, so then that way I don't have this weird little molehill, this diglet thing kind of sitting here in front of me. So let's add a little bit of green to this. I love green. Today, I went back, and I'm going to add this on a different layer. I went to redo my website because I was doing a submittal for, I did a proposal for another bit of freelance from another company that had kind of asked me to submit some stuff, and I went and looked at my portfolio, and I was like, oh God, this doesn't look good. And I know that's kind of a crappy thing to admit, but it didn't. I went back and I was like, what was I blind when I set this up? And it was kind of weird because I thought to myself, I was like, okay, go back in and fix up, put some new stuff up on there. Like I had gotten kind of by after I got my last job and had a lot of different things on there. And there's a cardinal rule. If you're an illustrator, you're an illustrator. If you're a photographer, you're a photographer. If you're that, you're that. You can be a jack of all trades, but don't mix it in your portfolio unless you have a fiendishly good way to do that. It just doesn't look right. It kind of looked like I was trying to be everything to everyone at the same time, and it was not great. I was not enjoying it. Because I know other people were probably like, what the hell is this guy about? Like, Captain overqualified here. And not that I'm overqualified. I'm beginning to find that out quite a bit. I'm not. But at any rate, I was looking online in my portfolio, and I thought, okay, it's like half illustration, some weird concept art, some 3D stuff, and then some graphic design was lumped in there. It just didn't look right. And so I was like, oh, okay, I got to fix this before I send this in, because I'd like to be able to get more clients. I'd like to be able to do that sort of thing and get into this more wholeheartedly on certain levels, as more of a full-time gig. And so after all that was done and said, I started going back through my stuff, and as I updated, you can go and check it out. It's under portfolio on my website. I'm not going to pull it up right now. And when I did, I was like, I really love green a lot. Green and black, which is weird because green, black, and silver. Those are the colors I really enjoy. And you will find green in everything. If you ever see my setup at a show, it's black, white, and green. And mainly green because of the artwork. But I love just the overall color of it. I mean, just forests, Mossman from Masters of the Universe, Swamp Thing, just anything like that. I love that sort of stuff. And so anyway, I was noticing when I put that, I was like, oh my God, I got to find some other artwork that has some different coloring, because it just looked like this swatch of green. Like they were like, did this guy just get the green edition of Photoshop? This is all he freaking knows how to use? I was like, oh God, I got to diversify my color. So I'm actually thinking about trying to go back to school, sincerely, not fake posting about it like I accidentally did the other day when I'm like, going back to college. No, that's me being old, not knowing how to use Facebook right. And I totally jacked that up. So the point was that I thought to myself, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can get a course in there that allows me to figure out color theory a little bit more and do some interesting things with that. But I didn't. I haven't looked into it any more than that. I should. I know I really need to, and that sort of thing. So, man, well, this has been easier than I thought it was going to be to get through tonight. Again, I don't apologize for having been in such a sad mood last night. I really was, guys. I mean, without going into it too much, like we've all had. This isn't just about me. We've all had some tough times. And if anyone got tired of my little rant yesterday, or, kind of going on and bemusing myself and being upset and sad and all this other stuff and morose, I do apologize. I try my best to be as positive as possible. When I go to work, I've often believed, you should, whether you're working from home or you're doing other stuff, at a business, you want to try and, bring your best into that game. You don't want to be the kind of person that is, always like, oh, Jesus, here he comes, this guy. And I get that, nobody enjoys somebody who's a Debbie Downer all the time, and that can be a hard thing to go through and all that other stuff. But sometimes you need that catharsis. Sometimes you need that moment to get out there and let it out. I mean, if not, it gets to you on the inside. You end up like really losing your mind. I know I was for a while, not just with the passing of Mr. Grant Amahara, but just in general, man. Like, how much more crazy crap are we going to go through in 2020? Sincerely, like, all joking aside, like, what else is in store. You know, you see all the memes that show like Cthulhu or Godzilla or an atomic weapon, or you know, people making jokes like, "Hey, who had unicycle riding honey badgers? Huh? Who had that? They got that one in the bingo of 2020." And it's been really crazy. It's been really nuts. This came out way better than I thought it was going to. And that was 25 minutes in. So I may end up just saving this, I don't know, for something. I don't know what. When I was still doing Pagan Zoetrope, which, yes, I can say that right now, Pagan Zoetrope is on a permanent back burner because I'm trying to get Ardor finished. I used to take elements like this and work it in. Like, I would draw something like this and then digitally go in and put it on a comic book or something in the background for the comic. And I built it up more like an old Flash animation show would have been, because I didn't really know how to put a comic book together. I knew I had to draw certain panels and do certain things, but I didn't understand, because I was still trying to wrap my head around whether or not I wanted it to be a web comic or not. And I've also had people ask me if I'm ever going to put Pagan Zoetrope online for free. I might, but I've still got some back issues, and I think 1 or 2 graphic novels that I found the other day left. So I'm probably going to list those online on my website and see if anyone's willing. They'll be cheap. They will be dirt cheap. I love that stuff. For those of you that do not know what I'm talking about, Pagan Zoetrope was a comic book effort that I started quite a few years ago. I was actually at Hallmark full-time when I did it. And here's a weird bit of stuff. It is actually based somewhat on my time in college, but I redid it by portraying myself as a woman, kind of. It takes quite a bit of liberties. I wanted to do a comic book that was about my time in college, but then somebody later was like, probably not a good idea to use names, places, events, or situations. So while some of it is a little bit, like a little bit over the top and that sort of stuff, a lot of it was pretty close to some situations and circumstances I remember people going through. And so the only one that really stayed 100% true in there's a character in there named Drew. That is he's kind of the silent Bob of the comic, which, you know, the comic, if you read it, it has a very late 80s, 90s sort of aesthetic to it. And there was another character, there was Drew and Dre, and they were kind of the silent Bob and Jay of the comic book. And it revolved around the main character, Melanie, and then her roommate, Mandy. And the two of them were really kind of both the main characters. And so they were those 4 characters, 3 of them really, Dre was not. Those three characters were kind of breakoffs of my own personality and other people I knew, and then I had recombined them into new characters. And then Dre was based on my buddy Andrew Sloan, who passed away a few years ago. And I had gotten permission from him originally to start doing that. And then I'd even talked to my buddy Ronnie Fortune, who I gave him kind of a cameo in there because he was definitely a unique guy when we were growing up, still is. And a hell of a guy to try and not lampoon, but like make a caricature of, because he was such a unique guy. He is such a unique guy. And you know, you meet people like that. You're like, I can't improve upon this formula. Like the real you is almost so unfathomable for most people to get. So, but it became a little hard to write. I think I kept writing myself back into a corner, and I didn't like that. I kept struggling. I kept going back and looking at things and going, all right, what are you trying to do with this? What are you trying to tell? You know, what do you have to say about these characters? And when I didn't have that anymore, I spent more time trying to really hammer that stuff out and figure out what I wanted to say and what I wanted to do about things. And when the more I struggled with it, the less I wanted to do the character or to do the story, not the characters. And it unfortunately just finally died on the vine, and I wish it hadn't. Maybe someday I'll go back and I'll revisit that. But for now, there's not a real good chance of that. I hate to say that, because I know that there were people that genuinely did like it. It was the very first comic book I ever put out, and I was really shocked. I think by the time it was done, and there's 2 versions of it that exist. There's a fellow that I probably shouldn't bring up his name, but he had half of one of the issues, or four or six of the pages, I think, on issue 12 of Pagan Zoetrope. And so there's that version where it's kind of a dual issue. You flip it over and there's another story on the backside. But total, I mean, I started writing that comic, I think it was 2010, something like that. Now, I haven't actually sold a whole bunch of those issues over the last few years or anything. Like occasionally, like I'll find some, or I'll have some left over from the original print run that I bring to shows and stuff, and you know, I'll sell a few here and there. But I do tell people, like, hey, it's kind of a one-off. It's dead in the water now. And I was really shocked. I kept track of all my stuff, and issue 1 is the only one that I have a reliable count on, because it went into print. I reprinted it digitally independently 4 times. Each print run was 100 comics. I don't know why I stopped, because I actually sold out of all of my issue 1s with the exception of 3 artist proofs here and 1 that I gave, I believe, to my buddy Craig. And that's it. And then there was the collected edition. I made a little trade paperback of it, of the first 4 issues, I believe. And so that was cool. And I always questioned myself. I always kind of got mad at myself, like, why didn't I keep going with this? This was really working out well. But sometimes stories just don't work out for the time that you're doing them in. You know, that's just what it is. So now I'm getting to the point where I may be putting in too much line work and starting to kill this, which is exactly why I put that on there. But I kind of like that. That's not bad. I think what I'm going to do is reduce the fill on this a little bit. Just like that. So it's just a little hint of it, and we'll hit save. So that was cool. It came out okay. Just a drawing, just a skull. But this is what I would draw all the time. And when I was little, I didn't necessarily draw this way. I don't think I can draw exactly like I did when I was a kid, but I'll see if I can find one of my drawings from when I was little and I would draw skulls. But the character looked, always started the same way, but it was always much more simple. So it was eyes like this, and oh my God, this is coming off really retardedly. I always, for some reason, I was like edgy, right? As a kid in the 80s. I don't know if it was the high amount of Z's and all the things we would say at the end of everything. For everything, Z's and X's, like everything had to be extremes. But I would draw it kind of like this, and then I remember he always had spaces in between his teeth. Like, oh God, this is like bringing back 1,000 memories in one. And then I remembered, yeah, there's this little area here on the head, right behind the eye. So I would draw a line here, draw a line here like this, and then kind of cup it in this way. And back then I was really trying to get the skull to the right size. So I do that, and just like I did up here with a little crack on there, I would always do like a little crack on the head. Like I think everyone died by pickaxe in my head, and I would always do a few lines so that way you kind of see lighting in the back like that, and then the eyes always were lines. Lines. I never filled it in. I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I liked comic book art and I really liked it at that time. And then I'd go over and do like, no, that's not what I did. What did I do for the teeth? I don't remember now. Oh, and then, yeah, the skull's bottom jaw came down like this. God, this is bringing back 1,001 memories. That's what I did. I made the bottom teeth like this. And then there's this, the area here. The skeleton mustache kind of lines there. My God, that looks dumb. Yeah, I would draw like this, and then like I think for some reason, I don't know why, but like I know that the human spine doesn't look like that, but in my head every human spine is like this weird, like I don't know if it's like a weird thing, like this is probably gonna come out looking horrible now, but I always imagine, and I think there is a bone that sticks out on the spine like this, but not like a shark. And so you have this, and this might be a gross oversimplification of what I've seen in cartoons and stuff, where you have this weird shark-like bone here, where it's all shark-weaky and that sort of thing. And I would put that down here on this sort of thing, and then like, because I could never remember exactly how like the clavicle and the shoulder blades and the back and the rest of the rib cage was coming. I knew that there was a sternum And boy, I knew where the sternum was for certain. I cracked that bad boy in a bad skating accident when I was living on base. I hit a parked car. That's a special kind of talent that me and drunk women sometimes have. I tell that story, not making fun of women. There was a lady. I think I've told a few people this story that. I always used to do like extra circles and then draw a line through to make sure I had that down. So technically, when I would have started that skull, it would have been just like that. Like, let me draw an oval. Okay, but it's going to be super skull-like. So he has this here. Here's his cheekbones. I would actually draw that underline thing, and then the oh, that's looking terrible. It's looking like Iron Man with his first costume. Let me erase that. But so, where was I? Oh, there was a lady that when I was working security, I saw her outside and she was passed out. She was like, her rear was in the air. She's like face down on the ground, like passed out, purse spilled out with everything. And I was off work, but I was like, ma'am, because that's kind of a scary thing. You're like, oh God, I just found a body out here. And she finally sat up. And I got her to wake up, and she's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing in my house?" I'm like, "You're not in your house. You're out here on the ground outside of Power and Light." And she swore she knew me or something like that. But at any rate, the long story short, she's like, "I was like, have you had a hell of a night?" She's like, I've had a terrible night." I was like, "Really?" She's like, Have you ever been hit by a parked car?" And I laughed and laughed and laughed. I'm not even doing that justice. That was the funniest damn thing I have ever heard. I've actually heard one other thing that came close to it. I could tell that story later. It's a little gross, but it's pretty funny. At any rate, I'd never laughed that hard. Drunks to me make me laugh. I got a lot of them in my family. They've made me laugh over the years. You gotta laugh or you cry. So, anyway. All right, I'm going to save this little bit of coloring and silliness with skulls tonight. This came out pretty well. So, and hopefully, if this music's coming through and you can hear it, I'm not going to get clipped off from YouTube because it's supposed to be royalty-free music or trademark-free or whatever it is, that sort of thing. But one step closer to getting on Twitch and doing this sort of thing live. So thanks for watching, guys. We have now just hit about 40. We're on 37 minutes right now. Thanks for watching. I will do more of these. This is going to be kind of the format I'm going to do, and I'm going to start jumping into some different stuff. I had an idea. I love collecting dice, and I have storyteller dice. For those of you that don't know what those are, storyteller dice, I'll do a review on those things soon. I'm going to start doing some of that stuff. But storyteller dice are these little dice that have random images on them. So like you might roll one and it's a knight. You roll another one and it's a motorcycle. You roll another one and it's a dragon. And then you roll another one. You can do things like that and then just kind of pick what you want from there. Or you can start off saying, well, I'm going to tell a story about a dragon who owns a motorcycle and he has to fight a dragon. You know, that sort of a thing. And then you draw it as you go along. And it was an idea that I'd seen. This goes back to my theater days doing improv stuff. And I thought, well, why don't I do something like that and see exactly how a drawing would come out and spend a couple of hours doing that. So that's the idea. Originally, I was just going to kind of pop it out there and see what people thought, but maybe some feedback would help. If anyone feels like commenting, saying anything below, let me know. That'd be great to know, that sort of thing. The idea was to get a secondary camera and show that that's what I've actually rolled. So I have to stick with it. So it would be just set up here next to my tour box. And then whenever I roll the dice, you guys see exactly what I'm rolling. So it's keeping everybody honest, especially me, since I'm the one not going, I don't feel like drawing a chicken that's wearing a top hat that has to assassinate a cheeseburger. I don't, if that's what it says, that's what I got to do. So at any rate, thanks again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys enjoyed my banter. This is something I'm hoping I can turn into a more regular thing, especially on Twitch. The channel is up. I just have to finish getting some stuff done. Right now, I'm currently helping some other people get their Twitch channels up and going as far as the graphics and stuff like that too. So that's turned out to be a really good thing. One of them I'm really looking forward to, my buddy Ben Watkins. He is with Brass Engine Productions, games, all this other stuff. Crazy talented guy. If you get the chance, go to his channel. There's quite a few people on Twitch that I love watching their streams. Him and Robot Co-op. They are another one. They used to be Incognito Cinema Warriors XP. Go watch their streams. They're amazing. And there'll be other people I'll name drop on this as well too eventually when people give a damn what I have to say. Until then, take care guys. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.